Valerie Tosi, thanks for coming to It's Show Business.
Thanks. Oh, were we recording already?
Yeah, we rocking and rolling.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like we know each other intimately because I edit your pod.
I know.
I mix your pod, I should say.
Yeah.
And also take out all your crazy stuff you say.
Yeah, all the horrible
all the
things.
stuff. You take that out. Mark 3 minutes.
Yeah.
No, you never say anything
Take
horrible.
out the hot goss.
Yeah. Your pod is actually very easy to edit because you guys are very, you and Suba are both good podcasters. So you're constantly going back and forth, not leaving a lot of gaps and stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, that's always the fear is like there's just dead silence. And
Right.
luckily, because it's not live, you're like, we can take that out in post.
Yeah. Or if you have a weird guest in there.
Yeah, it's funny because
Like me, all-time worst guest.
You are not the all-time worst guest.
Oh, you have one? You don't say it, but you have one?
Well, it's funny because just because somebody's a comedian doesn't translate to being a good podcast guest.
Right.
And I think it's because when you're prepared material, you know what you're doing, you go up, whatever. But when you're just trying to hold a conversation with somebody, they might not always, they might be the wallflower that's normally just listening rather than talking at a party. And then you're like, oh, we're too far in now to change this.
Yeah. And your podcast, Family Gems, is about family stories. For those who don't know, follow it. It's great. And I don't think I was prepared enough. And I also felt kind of weird talking about it. When it came to actually doing it, I was like, oh, I don't know if this, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of paranoid people are going to listen to it if I say anything mean. So I only said positive things.
Well, it's funny because people do get a little weird about like talking about their families, but I always tell people, I'm like, look, first of all, you can always change names. Second of all, our parents don't know how to use the internet, so they're not going to find this. And even if they do, like, there's a quote that I love that's by Anne Lamott that's so wonderful that I always keep in mind when I'm writing stand-up too, which is if people wanted you to talk more warmly about them, you should have behaved better. And it's
That's
so
a
true.
good quote.
It's
Yeah.
great because
Yeah.
it kind of gives you like and the other part of the quote is she says like you own everything that happens to you, which
Right.
is true. Like it's your life, and as long as you're not out, trying to cause trouble, but if you're just,
Yeah.
sharing memories.
Totally. It is. Those are great quotes because, yeah, I've been trying to live my life more that way because if you think about it, we are being recorded on podcasts, but our phones,
Everywhere.
life is recorded now. So you kind of just need to behave like your best self all the time.
That's why it's so funny to me when like specifically politicians and things or even celebrities and whatever try to backtrack where it's like, yo, everyone has receipts.
Yeah.
Everyone
has
does.
receipts. That's a good name for a special.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone. Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's
All
yours.
right. Thank you. I gotta go write an hour. I'll see you later.
I'm sure you have an hour.
I mean, I had it. Well, I burned it when I did my album. So
Yeah.
now it's like the rebuilding phase where you're like, I got about half an hour of like new stuff. And you're just, it's not easy. I look at people like Taylor Tomlinson that I'm so in awe of her ability to write so fast and furiously and be such an incredible writer.
Yeah,
and
constant.
turn out, she's a machine. Like, I don't know how she does it.
She's so focused on the craft, and she's amazing. Like the special comes out, and she's already doing a tour. With
Yeah,
a new
everyone.
album.
But and then of course too, because people now are so hungry for content and so unsatiated that like you can't please everybody no matter how fast you're putting stuff out. Where she talks about it all the time, where she's like, the special will come out in that same day. People are like, well, when's the next one? It's like, let people have a minute and enjoy something in real time rather than pushing them for the next thing.
They want hyper consumption. They want consumption all the time, like new posts every day. And that's what the algorithm is.
Yeah, they punish you if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't posted in a week and I posted one today. And I feel like they're kind of like, the algorithm's like someone you're dating. They're like, no, I'm going to be mean to you today, but then I'm going to be nice to you. And
Yeah.
they kind of like, they play with your emotions.
I feel like the algorithm is like, what did you bring me? Nothing? Well, then you get nothing. And it's like it's such a finicky bitch.
Right. You go on a date with the algorithm and it's like, we'll see.
Yeah. I'll call you. Maybe. Like this was just a hangout. We're not actually dating exclusively. It's such an... And then I don't know if you saw this, there was just this big like mic drop that happened with social media because I work in social media, so I like can't escape it. But there's apparently Apple just announced when they're doing their new update on the operating system that they're going to start basically taking 30% of revenue when it comes to sponsored ads.
Really?
So it's not going to affect like TikTok Twitter, things like that, but it's specifically going after Meta for like Facebook and Instagram. So
You are in the biz because you called it Meta.
I know. Well, I hate it. It's so dumb. And I'm like, I don't know what it's Kanye and Ye. It's like, I don't know, man. They're still both awful. But so yeah, they definitely, it's going to be a huge shakeup because they're coming for their business. I remember when Apple rolled out that whole thing where they were saying like, oh, we're going to make it more difficult for apps to track you. Like you have to opt into it. And everybody was like, this is so great. What a great company. And in my brain, I'm like, tech giants don't do good things and good deeds. I was like, this is like something else is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, my boss sent me the article today and I was like, well, there it is.
Apple seems to hate Facebook. I think
It's kind of funny.
There's some grudge that something happened. They didn't say hi one time walking down the hallway at some tech conference and they're like, that's it.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because it's just like.
Because Apple used to hate Google.
Yeah.
Because when they came out with the Android, like Steve Jobs was pissed. Like you copied our ideas. He kicked the Google people off the Apple board. And it was like a big thing. Then he died. But
and then that ended that argument.
Right.
But it is like, you can't have a full monopoly either. So, people, it's almost like people take turns being the good and the bad guy in this. And it's interesting to follow.
I like Google's slogan, don't be evil. And you're like, meh.
Wait, is that really their slogan?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It is, don't be evil.
That's really funny.
There's a great book called The Googleplex. You have to read it.
Okay.
If you're in the industry, you'll eat it up. That book is amazing. And I'm halfway through this new book on YouTube. I forgot the title, but it is so interesting to watch YouTube's progression on how they changed from like likes matter, then watch time, and like how they're angering all the huge influencers at the time, like PewDiePie and stuff like that. And they're pushing back. And then you find out like YouTube doesn't actually know how to use the platform as well as the people who are using the platform, and they're talking. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool. It is fascinating. We're living in such an interesting time with tech and specifically social media and how fast it changes. Like, these companies you can't be the top dog forever. It doesn't work like that. Now that TikTok's in the game, it's like changing everything. And I feel like my parents now where I'm like, I don't use TikTok really. The app confuses me. I open it up and it's immediately yelling at me because I hate that it autoplays when you open it.
Autoplays sound.
Yes, that's what I mean. I don't mind the video,
That
but
is the
sound.
most embarrassing thing. When you open up TikTok by accident in public and you're like, oh my God.
That's why I don't open it most of the time because I have the notifications off too because I'm like, if I can't just see what messages I have or whatever, I'm in a place, I'm in a meeting, I'm in whatever. Yeah. I'm like, I can't, you guys, you make me not want to use this app because of that.
Right. And they are taking over, but TikTok shows me no love. Come on, TikTok.
I know. I started posting clips on there for stand-up because everyone's like, you got to be on here, blah, blah, blah. But the algorithm is not kind to female comedians, and they're not as good about pushing out our stuff as they are for men. It's like it's a known thing.
Really?
And yeah, especially in the trolls too, where they're always going to go after women. Like the first video I ever posted got flagged and taken down because it was a dark joke, but it wasn't anything like crazy. And I was like, so the video was still up, but the sound, they took off the sound.
Oh, wow.
Which was like...
It's stand-up.
Yeah, I was like, this is the dumbest thing.
Did you have captions?
I did have captions, but it still was like, if you can't hear it, there's really no... You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing if people want to watch it like that, but if people don't have the option, there's no point.
It's done.
Yeah.
I have watched a few clips without the sound and just the captions of other people. I'm like, that kind of works.
Yeah.
And I do watch mine before I post it with the sound off just to be like, does it flow?
Yeah.
And you got to do all these little tricks. Like I try to zoom in. It's almost like I used to mix records like for music.
Oh, cool.
And you'd want to make sure like the chorus comes in and then there's like a little bump and then maybe the volume comes up, then it goes down just to kind of keep the ear interested.
Yeah.
And you got to do that with video. Like a few seconds go by, you kind of zoom in a little bit. Then you kind of zoom out, and then you kind of, or a picture comes, like you got to keep the...
Yeah, change the angle.
Change the angle. Yeah. You got to have cuts. You got to have movement. Otherwise, it gets a little bit slow.
Yeah, that's so fun. Ugh, man.
But then I just posted one today with almost no movement because I didn't want to do the editing, and it's doing super well. So I'm like, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
None of us... and there's so much of it, too, where like, you just don't know what time of the day. Like everybody thinks they know what time of the day is the best to post,
right?
Because we're all fed like whatever.
It's 9 a.m. Wednesday.
Somebody. Yeah, exactly. 10 a.m. Tuesdays, man, fire. Yeah. Like it's so dumb. But like for my job, we use a platform called Sprout Social that allows you to like publish and schedule posts and things like that. And basically it feeds all of the social media platforms into one space. So you can see people's comments and likes and and DMs and everything in one spot. And when you're scheduling posts, it gives you the option to have like an optimization of, okay, like pick the best time that the last time you got like the most traffic, basically, to post, which
So
is
you use
great.
like AI to kind of determine?
Kind of. You basically just click it and it'll tell you like what the time was that you had the best response, and then you can choose that time again.
Yeah. MailChimp does that too.
Yeah. If you pay for it, which I do not, so I just send it at the same time every Monday.
Right. I paid for this is the story. I started paying for it. So I was like,
Did you see a big difference?
I saw no difference.
Okay.
Made no difference. And then I tried to downgrade the account. And I'm like, sorry, you can't downgrade.
I didn't know you couldn't do that.
You can downgrade once, but then if you upgrade again, I did it twice. And if you do it again, they won't let you downgrade. You have to pay or you have to close your account. And so I ended up calling customer service, and I was like, come on.
That's insane. Especially if is that written anywhere? Because
I'm sure it is somewhere, and I clicked through some click-through agreement or something,
yeah.
but I was like, come on. And they were fine. They're like, fine, we'll do it for you. But they keep taking away features from the free one. So now I can't even schedule it at any time. I have to send it. Like I make the email, and I have to send it then.
Wait, since when? Because I just did it like 3 days ago and scheduled it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe you're being punished.
I think I'm being punished.
That's so funny.
But I don't.
We'll give him his account back, but at a price.
Yeah, it's so awful. But I think like QuickBooks bought MailChimp, and I think that kind of ruined like Intuit software. And since then, it's
Can't have a bunch of accountants running this. Get
I
out
mean,
of
they're
here.
gonna squeeze the dollars out of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know if there's any other ones that are good, but I'd love to switch off of MailChimp to something else.
I use MailChimp for the show that I run for Mermaid Comedy Hour.
I use it for my show, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like we only use it. We send out one email a month. So to me, it isn't worth it to pay for the account because I'm not a small business that needs to send out a bunch of emails.
You're not doing A/B testing.
I'm not doing any of that. So I'm like, it's just one email. I don't really care if it goes out at an optimized time. Like people that are on this list are comedians or people that are fans of the show, and they're going to open it if they want to open it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They know what it is.
Matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a sale that's time sensitive, you know?
I do the follow-up the next day. It's like resend. The app is helpful for MailChimp because it notifies me. It's like, hey, this many people opened the email. Do you want to resend to the people who didn't open? And I
didn't know you could do that. That's cool.
If you have the app on your phone, I don't know if you do.
I've never used the app, no.
Yeah, you should download it just for that because you'll forget. Or at least I do. And then it'll come up, be like, oh, do you want to resend to all the people who didn't open it? I'm like, yes. And then those people will get it.
Oh,
so
that's
that
so
helps.
cool.
Because I do that a lot. I'll be like, I'll get to it later.
Yeah.
And then I never open it. So it kind of like re-pushes it. Because getting people to a show is hard. You know that.
Mm-hmm. And it's tough too because the way that MailChimp is set up is if you don't have like, if the email address that you're sending it from isn't a Gmail address and not an actual like .com address, then it punishes you, and it I think it's Gmail that does it. They automatically filter it into the promotions tab.
Yeah, if you have tabs enabled, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's frustrating because you know that it's not going directly into people's like priority inbox. It's just going into one of the other ones.
I forgot about that because I turned off tabs so early because one day they were like tabs and they started splitting.
I didn't know you could turn them off.
You can turn it off. I did not want things segregated.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me put it back into one mailbox. But I totally forgot. Yeah, other people, it's probably just going to their promotions.
Yeah.
Never to be seen
so they
again.
just don't see
How
it.
are we going to get people to the lab? The one question every comedian wants to know.
I know, and it's so funny because it's not even that big of a room, and it's still like, how many eggs do I have to sell to get people to come to this show?
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is tough. We did like 35. We have around 35 is kind of our spot. I've never had like a 55 there.
We've sold it out before. It's usually our anniversary show, which is coming up. So I'm like, all right.
Sell it out?
Sell it out.
What's the day?
November 14th. It's a Monday night at 7:30 p.m.
Okay.
It is our, wait for it, 7-year anniversary.
You've been doing this show for 7 years?
Isn't that the most insane
At the Improv
thing?
or in general?
The first year, in general, but mostly at the Improv. The first year I was at IO West when I started it. And we had our first anniversary show there, and then after that I moved it to the Improv.
That's amazing. We'll definitely buy tickets for Mermaid Comedy Hour November 14th.
Yeah.
After you buy tickets for the Comedy Bunker November 3rd.
Do we give them a 2-for-1? Like,
I'll do a 2-for-1 for you. But yours is female only?
Yeah, female identifying, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. We have a really good lineup too. Beth Stelling is on it.
Nice.
Mo Welch, Helen Hong, Aisha Alpha, Andy Erickson,
I
Aaron
love
Tracy.
Aisha.
They're so great. Yeah.
Canadian.
Yeah. Fellow
A fellow
Canuck.
Canadian. She did my Canadian show. We had all Canadians for Canada Day.
Oh, that's fun.
And it was a blast. Yeah.
That's so fun. Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be really fun. And because it's always wacky and like, especially the anniversary one, we'll get like tacky decorations and like go all out in the lab and have like candy out and like giveaways. Yeah, it's real fun.
I had no idea you'd been doing it for 7 years. That's amazing.
Is it or is it insanity? Because I started running that show when I pretty much started doing stand up. Like
it's a great way to start because you meet everyone. You kind of have some social currency. I don't really believe in trading spots. Like it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's nice to really get integrated into the scene with the show.
It is. And especially too, like when I started it, I was only a year in and I was frustrated because, and it's not that by any means is it fixed, but it was mostly male dominated lineups and we were all so frustrated.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to start my own then. And it was so funny because Jackie Cation was our first headliner.
I love Jackie.
Love her.
She's so funny.
She's the best. And she had a great time. And because, when it's your first show, you're terrified if anybody's going to come, if it's going to be good.
All
like, I didn't know how to host. I'm like, ugh. And so after she did it, was so kind and so supportive. And she emailed me after and was like, oh, I told Maria Bamford about your show. She wants to do it. Is it okay if I give her your email? And I was like, yeah, of course. And so then she was our second headliner. When
That's
we did
amazing.
Yeah, it was cool.
I started my show before I was doing comedy.
Wait, what?
So it was very much the same. I started the show. I kind of knew I wanted to do it, but didn't really. And I had someone else host it. So the first show I ever did, I wasn't even on the stage. But I had done like one open mic before that and it went well. And then after that, I started hosting and then it started. So I started it right away too.
It's funny because I know some other people that like hosting but don't really want to do comedy where they're like, I have fun bringing up my friends, but I don't.
You don't want to be a comedian or do.
Which I think is really interesting.
Well, hosting is like less pressure and your job is to make, I always approach hosting as like, my job is to make the show good.
Yeah.
I'll try to work in some stand-up, but it got to the point where we had so many repeat customers that I didn't want to do my act every week unless I had a new bit because it was just kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
So then I started doing 15 minutes of crowd work. And I'd seen Jimmy Brogan, who's like a legendary Tonight Show writer, when Jay Leno was there.
Yeah.
I saw him open for Jay Leno and I watched him do crowd work and I was like, notes taken. Like he was just so good at it. He'd like talk to one person, talk to the other person, tie them together and never offensive, never attacking them. And I was like, that's the way I want to do it. I want everyone to like enjoy it, but I don't want to be like, you suck or just be aggressive.
Yeah.
Because in the lab, especially, if you turn on the crowd, it's done.
Yeah.
It's finished.
Like,
right.
I've seen it too. Like you see shows that are like rocking and rolling, people are having a good time, and then you get somebody that just sinks the ship.
Right.
And you're like, it's so hard to turn it around.
Well, it's finished. I think it's finished for you. Like I think they'll be turning it around, but I saw someone like just be like negative and I was like, okay, you're done here.
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough people in that room and it's already loud. And then you start shit and then you shit on the lab from the stage. Nope. Forget it.
And I tell people too, and I tell everybody that does my show, I'm like, look, people get really intimidated at the fact that this is the Hollywood Improv. And this is especially people that are newer because we try to balance it with having headliners that are really well known and, people that have just been in it for a long time. And then we always try to book one or two people that are greener because
that's a great way.
Yeah, because first of all, they have to have stage time in order to get better. You can't get better without it. And so they need to be on shows that are well attended so they can actually see if their stuff is working. Because if you're only doing mics, you don't get the feedback that you need.
Or you get the wrong feedback.
Oh, God, I know.
Yeah.
And so like that, and also, I hate to say it, but like people that are newer tend to be more excited about getting some of their friends to come see them. And it's definitely not by any stretch a bringer show because I'm never like, you have to blah, blah, blah. But it's like, it's just nicer that you're like, oh, these are people that are still unjaded and excited about comedy. So they're going to share with their friends and their peers.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, look, people get intimidated by the fact that this is the Hollywood Improv. You got to throw that away. It's just another room.
The comics do or the audience?
The comics do.
Oh, okay.
Like especially the
newer ones. Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, it's just another stage.
Yeah.
And also, but that doesn't mean don't bring your A game. Of course, bring your A game. But also, and this I tell to everybody, no matter they're new or old. The lab is exactly what you make of it.
Exactly.
So if you go in with a bad attitude,
I should be under it.
Yeah, like literally, like if you go in with a bad attitude, it's going to affect your show. And your performance and other people's performance. You have to go in just being excited to be there, because if you're excited, everybody's on board.
Yeah. I have a theory that if they put on the stage somewhere the improv.
Yep, I've said this for 7 years.
It would change because I feel like, and this is just my opinion, the audience who buys tickets not knowing what they're getting, because they're just like improv, 2 rooms, 2 shows.
Yep.
I think they feel like they
feel like second-class audience members.
They feel like second-class audience members.
Yeah.
But do you feel that way in the belly room?
I don't, because
did you feel like the audience might feel they're second class in the belly room?
I think they feel like it's more intimate.
Right, exactly. They don't feel it's second class, they feel it's more intimate.
Yes. And I think like there's a few things that they could do. You know, they have the big marquee that's up above that they always put the names on, but they never put anybody that's on the lab up there. It's only unless they're famous.
Right.
You know, then their name will be up there, but it's always people that are in the main room. And there's no branding in the lab. It's just curtains. And I'm like, if they literally just put brick on the back or whatever.
Or improv lab.
And just literally the improv and then just at the lab or whatever. That like, it would change everything. People would treat it so differently.
Right.
And I know that there's plans in the works that they're, I think, eventually going to renovate it and completely change it over, because they've been doing that with the other locations around the country.
Yeah.
And I've seen like some of the mock-ups and it looks amazing. And,
Right.
I'm really hoping that they do it, because I think it's going to be better for everybody.
I do. Yeah, I agree with that. Because right now, like Adam Sandler goes to the lab on drop-ins.
There's some people that prefer the lab over the main room.
Right.
Like some of those, like
the people who can get spots in the lab.
Yeah, the ones that perform in the main room all the time, that they're like, yeah, we don't care. But like Sandler loves going in there. Who is the other person that loves going in there to work stuff out?
Aziz Ansari?
Yeah, and like I know Chappelle always preferred to be in there. Just like a bunch of people, because they want the intimacy, because when you get to a certain level, you're used to playing theaters and it's not the same. Like, especially if you're working stuff out.
Yeah. It's lower stakes too.
Yeah. And you want to actually like see people's faces.
Yeah.
And see what they're reacting to and get a feel for what you're working on and if it's working.
Right. I remember this great Tarantino quote where he's like, I did Pulp Fiction and it was huge. And everyone's like, how are you going to top that? How are you going to go above Pulp Fiction? And then like, instead of bending to that pressure and being like, I got to beat it. He's like, I want to come underneath it with Jackie Brown, something more mature, different, where that expectation isn't there. Yeah. And I just thought that was genius.
That's so smart.
And that's what they're doing in the lab. Like Adam Sandler is like, I could perform any sold out stadium probably, but let me come underneath and get intimate and find out, lower the stakes, lower the pressure, so I can make this the funniest stuff.
And those are the shows that are truly like magical too for the audience. Because
oh my God, yeah.
Getting to see somebody in a setting like that where there's only 65 people is crazy. And it's even more fun for them, because then you get to see how the, sausage is made.
Right.
And then when they do go on these big stadium tours, I mean, this happened with like John Mulaney. I got to see his new stuff at the Troubadour, which is such a small venue for him. And then to be able to get excited to see his new special, because you're like, oh, I was there for like seeing how it was getting built. I wonder what made it. I wonder what changes, and like how much fun that is for people, where they feel like they're a part of it.
Have you ever watched someone do a bit live? It goes into their special and you're like, I kind of liked it better when they were doing it in the earlier phase.
Yeah. When you see and you're like, oh, I feel like the other punchline was bad. But that's also us, because we're so critical, because we're in it.
Yeah.
It's hard and that's why it's so hard sometimes to watch stand-up as a stand-up, because we're just sitting there and like breaking things apart and figuring out how they work and why this worked and what didn't and how you would have done it. And it's tough.
I do think there's a lot of negatives to our constant recording everything all the time.
Yeah.
There's one positive that I want to run by you that I just realized. I think it's good because since we're capturing everything, there are sometimes you just capture the bit in the golden moment and it'll never be that good again. Mm-hmm. And you can post that. As opposed to like, okay, the pressure, the album, the special, whatever is going to come later, but you kind of need to capture it that night and you get it or you don't.
Yep.
But now we can be like, I did this 5 times, different shows. This one works. I have one that I posted that I was like, I'm not going to do this bit anymore. It's not working, but I have it captured working and and really doing well. And I was like, okay, I'll just post that. And so you kind of get this other way of having material. And even, I'm sure like it's happening with these big comedians too. Like I see Taylor's like constantly posting bits from small shows.
Yeah. And especially crowd work, which is really smart because you're not burning material.
Yeah.
And that's why I think comedians that are our age are having a really tough time, is that we're in that in between where it's like, before, everybody told us, like, don't post your stuff online. People steal jokes. You'll burn your material, blah, blah, blah. And everyone that's younger is like, you have to be on here. You have to be posting constantly. And it's tough because you're like, how do you no one can write that much material that fast and have it be good.
Right.
So like crowd work is such a great way to get clips that are fun that you can put online that isn't burning your material. But at the same time, I have seen some real bad crowd work videos.
There's some stinkers out there.
And you're like, what do you do? Like, no, just take the day off, man. Like, no one wants to watch this.
Maybe they do. I don't know. There's been some. I talked about this last episode with Paul Leah. Like he was like, there's this one where it's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, you dating? Oh, that's crazy. And there was like a big laugh, and that was a clip, and had 2 million views.
That makes me so infuriated.
And you're like, all right, so that's not the best representation of art, but
Yeah.
that probably did something for that comedian.
But it's also, it might be somebody because they already have a huge following, so people are watching it anyway. Oh,
but it's like, yeah, that happens too. So it's
Yeah.
like you can get little loves from the algorithm and the way stuff is posting, but I think that's the constant battle. I do like the way Mark Normand and Sam Morril do this kind of like ask questions at the end of their act.
Yeah.
And then people just yell stuff out, and then you can riff. It's almost like being on a topic mic where they pull stuff out of the hats.
Yeah. That's really smart. I feel, we're all going to start doing that now and setting up stuff. And I do feel like TikTok and Instagram reels and things like that are too saturated now with comedians doing this stuff because you've got all the famous people, but you've also got people that are just everywhere, and there's so many. And it's really like, I get so tired going through my own feed because I'm friends with mostly comedians. So you go through and you're like, can we get one photo? Just maybe one photo.
Oh, photos are dead.
I still post so many because doing like video, I hate it. Like, I don't mind editing like self-tapes and stuff because it's pretty cut and dry, but doing like editing clips for socials is my nightmare. Like, I never want to do it.
What about it?
What about it?
The tediousness of it? You don't like watching yourself?
I don't like watching myself. I also, I hate feeling the pressure of having to tape every set. I audio record every set, which I think is really important, and you should, because you need to hear what's working. And even if you say one joke with one word different, how it changes it. But taping, because then the second that I tell myself I got to tape it, that's when I'm too in my head.
Right.
And I don't have as much fun. It's always the shows I don't tape that are killer versus the ones that I do tape. And then I'm like, well, I can delete this.
You can merge those two thoughts, though. You can put up the camera and let go. That's
guess.
That's the own work you have to do because it has to be taped. You're missing out on just the way it's gone.
Yeah. You know what it is too, is that I don't like not having my phone on stage. And because I'm normally filming with my phone because I don't have a fancy camera.
Right.
That part's tough because I like having my recorder there so I can see how long I've done, have a set list, like all that. So that's the other part of that. I just need to get a camera and deal with setting
Or
it up.
a second, do you have an old iPhone?
I don't know. I think I traded it in when I got the one I have now. Yeah.
A cam.
That's a great idea though.
Right. I saw someone do that. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. In New York, they had 2 phones. Because I was like, you can keep them both in your pocket. One's on stage with the notes. One's recording the clips. I was like,
yeah,
that's smart.
Because especially if you use the old one for when you're on stage, because who cares? You don't need the camera.
You don't need the camera. It's got
Yeah.
your notes pulled up. Because I put the notes here. Mm-hmm. And it's less like obvious than a notepad.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. Even though I don't mind the notepad too, I'll put that down like a little piece of paper.
Yeah.
I think with the full notepad, it's a little much. And I have done that a lot. But just having something on the stool, just to glance at.
I like when people have notebooks on stage. I think it's kind of cool to like Deborah DiGiovanni stands there with her notebook and reads out of it the whole time. And
That's part of her act, though.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's fun to watch people try stuff and figure it out and have like some of the biggest laughs you can get is when you lean over to your phone and just be like, "Welp, not that one." And it's like, it's so fun.
Right. You could 2.2 million views.
Yeah. Oh God. Right.
Yeah, that is. I do like how Deborah has that because it's like it makes it kind of fun and intimate, and it's part of. She's really good at portraying like a whole act. Like it feels spontaneous and rehearsed at the same time, which is very thin tightrope walking.
Yeah.
And she always kills. Like,
Always. And in fact, she's one of those people that I would much rather see live because she's a force. You
She's
know,
a
like
force, exactly.
she's great, obviously, in specials and clips and stuff too. But it's for whatever reason, and I wish more people understood this, how much better stand up is live versus watching somebody's special.
oh, yeah.
It's not even close. Like it's so much. I don't know. It's like magic.
Where did you record your album?
I did it at the Comedy Attic in Bloomington, Indiana.
Oh, nice. And you do video and audio, or is this before?
So we did. I did have them. I had somebody film one of the nights. They couldn't make it the other night, so I have 2 of the sets. And I'm glad they ended up. The night that they did record was the night they could do, because that was the show that I took most of the stuff from for the album.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because we spliced in a couple things, because there was like 1 or 2 jokes that were in the set that I used most of that just didn't hit right or didn't sound right, or somebody yelled something. I forget what it was, but we ended up taking it from the other set and kind of Frankensteining it, but it's mostly all one set.
Nice. Yeah, albums are still a big part of the biz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone's been so stressed out too with the Spoken Giant stuff, because everyone's
Right,
been losing
pulling everything down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you part of that?
No, because I'm with Blonde Medicine for my label.
Okay.
And so they were not a part of that. Like, it's mostly, I think, 800-Pound Gorilla that's been a big
pulling
part.
them down. Yeah.
Yeah. And so mine was off of Spotify for a while because they pulled like pretty much everybody's, and then it's back up now. But it's so, you think you're going to make a ton of money because that's what we're told. Like, oh, albums are super lucrative. Like, you know.
Only on Sirius they're lucrative.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I guess what they're supposedly doing now, I heard Jackie and Lori talking about this, where they were saying.
On their pod?
Yeah. When
Their pod is great.
It's so great.
Yeah.
It's so inside baseball, and it's perfect.
Right.
Like, it really is. But they were saying how Sirius is no longer accepting comedy albums without a label, which
Interesting.
that sucks for people that want to do independent releases, because labels take so much money.
I come from the record business, so like, and I'm planning to do an album, and I was like, well, I'm going to do it independently. I'm not going to give away that huge percentage because I'm very well versed in.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing, like I had no clue, and honestly, I'm so happy I went with Blonde Medicine because they're amazing.
There are great labels out there, but
Yeah.
it's a pros and cons. They had that relationship to pitch it, so. If you can figure a way to own your masters at the end of the term, that's always good. But yeah, it's tough because you can put up your own album for $40, with one of these other distributors.
Yeah.
But that's a whole thing.
I had a few people that were trying to talk me into doing it independently, but I was like, I don't even want to clip and caption my own TikTok and Instagram videos. You think that I want to take this on? I'm like, no way. And I don't know what I'm doing. And well, yeah, I feel like it would have evened out in the long run, where the money that I would have made if I had gone with a label, because it would have gotten more exposure, is what I would have said. You know what I mean? Than versus
these are important discussions because labels exist for a reason. They have a PR machine, they have a marketing machine,
and they gave me a PR person.
Right, they know how to massage it.
Yeah,
they don't exist just to take money. They exist because they actually perform a service that is valuable. And sure, I'm sure artists are artists. Sometimes they don't like the label. Sometimes they want to leave. That's just part of life. But they are there to support the creators. And it sounds like you're at a good one. So that's awesome.
I was very lucky. Like, they were super kind, really knowledgeable. Like, when and this was like when the Spoken Giant stuff was happening, that we were dealing with it. And so they like emailed everybody, gave everybody a breakdown, like what was going on. Like, they were trying to keep everybody in the loop the whole time. Like, I can't say enough good things about them. They're so great.
Did you do a physical, like a CD or a vinyl?
I did a vinyl.
Nice.
So the only part that was a bummer was that we couldn't release the vinyl when the album dropped, because my album came out in January of this year. And so there was still a massive delay on vinyl because of the pandemic.
Yeah. There's still a delay.
Yeah. There was they were saying that it was a 6-month lead time to getting them pressed and turned around. And that was being like generous. It was probably going to be longer. So we ended up, we waited to order them, and we ended up ordering them, and they came a little early, which was great. And they're so cool. They're like, I ended up doing them on this translucent magenta vinyl,
special edition vinyl.
Yeah, it's so rad.
Right,
I'm so happy I
buy
did
one
it.
now because your second pressing might be black.
Yeah, it was super cool, and like I knew I wanted to do it if for nobody else other than me, because stand up is such a weird thing where you work on this art and this craft for so long that you don't have anything tangible really, And so, cause people aren't really doing CDs anymore or cassettes or whatever. And I was like, I really want something I can hold in my hand.
Yeah. Liner notes, little pictures, some story. Yeah. It's like it's almost like carving a statue. It's proof like that you were here.
Yeah. I was like, I miss physical media. Like, I'm glad that it's kind of making a resurgence because I've always loved vinyl. Like, I have a bunch at my house, and to have my own album now on that shelf is just so cool.
Yeah. It's almost like there was a time when proof you were here, it could be like you were an actor and you're on this show and that show broadcast and you're like, that's proof. But now we're all our own broadcasters, our own media staff. If you're on the internet in video form, it's just because you have a phone.
Yeah.
But you making a vinyl, that's special. Like, not people can't just walk off the street and make a vinyl.
Yeah.
That's a specific talent that you have that you recorded. So I support it.
Thank you. I'm pretty jazzed about it. Order them.
Order them now. Well, this has been great. I really enjoyed having you on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can you tell people where to plug your stuff and your socials?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, any social media platform. My handle is the same, at Valerie_Tosi. If you want to come see me live, my website is just valerietosi.com. There's a calendar page you can find, and there's a bunch of other stuff on there too. You can check out my voiceover stuff is there. Other podcasts I've done, videos, a bunch of stuff.
And listen to our episode of Family Gems so they can stop texting me how bad it's doing all the time.
That is not true. Do not listen to him. But yeah, and yes, our podcast Family Gems, it's me and Suba Agarwal. She was a writer for Jim Jeffries. She's super funny. And that podcast comes out every Wednesday, so you can find it wherever you get your podcasts.
It's great. Every time I complete an episode for you guys, I email you. That guest was great. You keep getting better and better.
Yeah, it's a learning process too, because I was a host on a podcast for a little while, but I was like, I wasn't even really doing stand-up yet, so I didn't know much of what I was doing.
You're a natural. You have a great voice for it. You stay still. You know where the mic is. Like, you're not all over the place. Like,
thank you.
Yeah, you're focused. You when I'm talking, you pause, because one thing I had to stop doing was like, you would talk and I'd be like, yep, and that's horrendous for the listener.
Yeah, it's
good
hard
for us in person, but the listener doesn't want to hear you being like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's tough too when you're recording remotely, because you're on Zoom, and that internet delay, man, it's
murder.
Brutal. It's brutal
Yeah.
because you end up talking over each other, and it's not intentional. It's not like somebody's trying to be rude. It's just you don't know when they're actually starting and stopping.
I stopped using headphones here because I thought it was more intimate.
Yeah, I actually, it was funny because I was wondering if we're going to use headphones, and I was like, I guess not. And I'm like, yeah, why would we? We're 2 feet from each other, and it's actually nice.
I think it looks better in the video, and we're close to each other enough. At first I thought I was doing like the Rogan style where it's like, you lock in more with it, and you do. And as the audio guy, I feel more comfortable because I know it's being recorded well, but I got the thing right here, the Zoom. I can tell it's going to be fine. Yeah. So thanks again.
Yeah,
enjoy the rest of your day,
me.
and we'll talk soon.
Cool.